The movie starts with a woman named Jokeshi at a party her husband Kenan threw to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the publishing house he inherited from his father. Kenan is speaking to all the guests, saying that when his father first founded this publishing house years ago, Kenan never imagined he would one day be able to manage it. He felt the whole venture would fail if he were put in charge. But after his father died, Kenan discovered a great passion for reading and gained discerning taste in which books to publish at his house. He makes sure to only publish books that will enrich readers' lives. At the end of his speech, he thanks his wife Jokeshi for standing by his side and being his rock for the past 10 years. After Kenan finishes his speech, he goes to speak with his friend Tanner. Kenan tells Tanner he wants his book sales to increase and he wants to always keep up with the times. Tanner advises Kenan to stop writing so much about himself in all his novels and to look for stories that are truly worthy of being published. Tanner says the coming period will bring big changes to Kenan's writing. Later, we see Jokeshi entering the house and finding the manuscript for an old book called The Ashes. It was one of the books submitted to Kenan for publishing, but either rejected or never read at all. Jokeshi starts reading the book and realizes it's the story of someone's life. It tells the story of her love for a man named Meme. She loved him deeply, and he was the reason her life changed. She says he lived in a neighborhood called Al-Balat and describes him as big with tattoos on his hand and neck. The two of them used to go to Al-Mashfaqa bakery in the Al-Balat neighborhood. Jokeshi then starts searching online for Al-Mashfaqa bakery in Al-Balat and finds out it really exists, not just something made up in the story. She immediately calls her Aunt Layla, and they go together to Al-Balat and sit in the bakery. They hang out there, and Layla keeps telling her this is just a novel. It's imaginary and made up by the writer. But Jokeshi insists. Jokeshi is determined to find Meme and live out the experience of the author. After a while, Layla says she has to leave for some errands, and Jokeshi tells her she'll stay in the neighborhood. She reads another part of the book where the author says during that time, her happiest moments were going to watch the carpenter Meme in his workshop. Jokeshi was overjoyed. This makes Jokeshi search all the carpenter shops in the area, looking at each carpenter to see if any match the description. After finishing, she stops by Kenan's office wanting to spend some time with him and talk, but Kenan's secretary comes and tells him he has an important meeting that needs to start right away. Jokeshi leaves, upset, and goes to continue reading the book. She reads a part about the place the author and her lover Meme would go, a tall tower overlooking the whole city where they had their happiest moments. The next day, Jokeshi returns to the bakery, hoping to see Meme. She meets a young man there who fits Meme's description from the book. She follows him after he buys his bread from the bakery, all the way to his workshop, and realizes he is a carpenter. This makes her more certain that he is the man. When she asks for his name, he says Ali. He asks what she needs from him, and she gets flustered. She says she needs a mirror for her clothes shop so customers can see themselves after trying on outfits. She tells him she'll bring the measurements and give them to him to make a good mirror. As soon as she leaves, she sees a delivery man bringing a package and calling out the name Meetin Ali. She gets excited again, realizing his real name is Meetin, so he could be Meme from the novel after all. She says she needs his number so she can call him with the measurements when she gets them. After leaving, she returns to her shop and calls to give. She returns to read more of the book and learns about the love relationship between the author and Meetin. The author says she was very upset and sad when she found out Meetin was married. The next day at her shop, Meetin comes to install the mirror. Jokeshi keeps looking at his hand to see if he has a wedding ring. When she doesn't see one, she feels confused, not sure if he is the man from the novel or not. After installing the mirror, she tells him she doesn't like where it is and asks him to move it somewhere else. He agrees, but the mirror breaks and his hand gets hurt. Jokeshi helps him. Jokeshi treats Meetin's wound and tells him she will cover the cost of a new mirror if he makes her one and brings it later. We then see her reading a new part of the book where the author talks about the tall tower overlooking the city. She left a mark on each pillar of the tower to memorialize her love for Meetin. At this time, Jokeshi is waiting for her son to come home from school. When they get home, her son IJ plays with and makes fun of the book, which greatly upsets Jokeshi. She keeps yelling at him. Kenan notices she has become very irritable and changed with them and asks if something happened, but Jokeshi tells him nothing is wrong and she's fine. The next day she goes to Meetin's workshop and says she came to ask about the mirror. They talk for a bit until they decide to to go have lunch together at a restaurant. There, Jokeshi asks Meetan if he is married or not. Meetan says he is single, not married. Jokeshi then asks if he knows of a tall tower in the city that overlooks everything. Meetan says he doesn't know what she's talking about. Jokeshi feels confused as she leaves. The next day, Kenan calls Jokeshi, telling her to come home right away. When she returns home, Jokeshi finds Lila sitting with Kenan. They both tell her they were called to the school because IJ got into a fight with another child and hit him. The school says they are being neglectful and not disciplining their son, whose first reaction is always violence. This makes Kenan accuse Jokeshi of neglecting their son. The next day at her shop, Meetan comes and tells Jokeshi he agrees to show her the tower, but only if she tells him how she knows about it. They head out, and a woman on the street sees them together, looking clearly upset. Jokeshi asks Meetan if he knows the woman, but he says it's the first time he's seen her. They continue on until they reach the tower. Jokeshi is very happy, looking at every corner of it joyfully. When they go up to the roof, she and Meetan joke around and spend time together. After a while, he asks how she knew about this tower. She says she heard people at the bakery talking about it. Meetan says she's lying because no one else knows about this place except him. Jokeshi then says she dreamed about it and saw details, so wanted to visit. They stay there together until nighttime. Meetan tells her he's responsible for the lighting and turns it on so the whole city lights up. Jokeshi forgets that she had agreed with her husband Kenan to attend an important dinner he organized that evening. Kenan keeps asking where Jokeshi is, telling people she's on her way, but traffic is bad. Kenan keeps calling Jokeshi while she's with Meetan, but she doesn't answer, making Kenan very upset with her. Later, Jokeshi returns home and Kenan is waiting for her. He argues with her for not answering his calls and missing their appointment, which put him in an embarrassing position in front of people. They keep yelling until their son IJ wakes up. Jokeshi says she came to put him to bed. The next day, Kenan goes to Jokeshi's shop and asks Jokeshi's assistant Selena where Jokeshi is, but she says she's not there. When he asks about the mirror, Selena tells him about Meetan installing it, breaking it, and Jokeshi helping treat his injury until his hand healed. Kenan thanks her and says when Jokeshi comes to have her call him. Meanwhile, we see Jokeshi with Meetan, watching through the window as Meetan argues with a woman. The woman says she saw him with another married woman when they were in the street. Meetan says they aren't legally married, so he can do what he wants. The woman says on paper they're married, so he should respect her feelings more. But Meetan keeps arguing. Jokeshi confronts Meetan for lying to her that he wasn't married, and lying again when the woman saw them together in the street, but he denied knowing her. Jokeshi is distraught and keeps arguing with him. Meetan explains he was forced into the marriage due to financial circumstances with his family long ago. They are only married on paper, and she refused to divorce him, hoping he would love her one day. But he still considers himself unmarried. Later, Meetan drops Jokeshi off at her house. Layla sees them together and realizes Jokeshi's relationship with Meetan has progressed. When she talks to Jokeshi and asks what happened, Jokeshi explains that she was trying to discover the world described in the novel, but ended up getting attached to Meetan and doesn't understand why yet. But she will try to distance herself from him and focus on her own life. She goes and gives the novel to Kenan, telling him she read it and it's not good. The idea is nice, but the writing is weak. Events don't connect, and it can't be published as a book. But Kenan takes the novel and reads the ending. The next day at work, he asks his secretary to find out exactly who submitted this novel to their company. The secretary says she'll look into it and get back to him. Kenan goes to the Albalat neighborhood to look for Meetan. At the same time, Jokeshi is with Meetan, telling him this is not just a fling for her and she could get attached. Her feelings are much deeper because she loves him and can't live without him. Kenan sees them together. Just then, Kenan gets a call from his secretary saying the woman who submitted the novel is named Rayhan Akaya and gives him her address. Kenan immediately goes there and meets Rayhan, saying he knows about the novel she sent to their publishing house. But Rayhan says she didn't send anything and tries to close the door. Kenan asks if someone living with her may have sent it, mentioning he learned from the novel she had a sister. But Rayhan says her sister died a year ago. When Kenan asks if her sister sent the novel, Rayhan claims not to know anything and shuts the door. Later, we see Rayhan telling Meetan that a man came asking about her sister Duio. She doesn't know who he is. Meetan says to forget it, it's over, and tells her not to come again. Kenan had been waiting in his car, realized she went to meet Meetan, and follows her. The next day, Kenan goes to meet Meetan, pretending to be a customer wanting a bookshelf built. He gives measurements and says he'll pay whatever Meetan wants, he just needs it done quickly. After After a few days, Meaton finishes the bookshelf and goes to Kenan's house to install it. While working, Kenan talks to him, asking if he's married or ever been married. Learning Meaton is single, Kenan insists he must stay for dinner since he has no wife to cook for him. Meaton agrees and thanks him for the hospitality. After eating, Jokeshi arrives outside and is shocked to see Meaton inside their house. Kenan tells her to sit down and not worry. He sits Meaton down too and talks about his wife Jokeshi, the avid reader who gives opinions on his books and helps him know what will sell. He says she wanted to live out Duijo's story, but didn't know how. Meaton gets upset and asks how Kenan knows about Duijo. Kenan accuses him of loving Duijo, but cheating on her with her sister Rayhan, causing the sisters to fight over him. He says the novel ended with Duijo committing the unthinkable, having predicted how she would die, feeling her time was up after being betrayed by her sister and lover. Meaton insists he never loved Duijo, only Rayhan, and it was Duijo who was obsessed with him. Her shock at learning he and Rayhan loved each other made her falsely feel betrayed. An intense verbal and physical fight erupts between them, with Jokeshi strangely not intervening. It continues until they fall into the swimming pool, where Meaton manages to stab and kill Kenan. In the final scene, we see Tanner speaking about his new novel inspired by a true story, now that he has stopped writing about himself. His wife Lila proudly watches from the audience. We learn the book is called The Ashes, the same title as the novel Jokeshi read. This implies Layla told Tanner everything that happened between Jokeshi and Meaton, and he turned it into a novel. That concludes today's